For the sake of fairness, I'm not going to do individual interviews. If you have any questions, you can pose them now. Yes.
Several of you spoke about distractions from the race and allude to people either bringing things out of the past or making things up. I'm wondering, do you think the issue of the loan that you took out from Loveship, which has been in the news the last few days, do you think that doesn't play a role in the election?
Let's just say this, that loan has been on Loveship's records for several years now. And I think everybody in this room who are men and women of intelligence questioned the timing. And in fact, I'm the person that made it public. I have an obligation as an elected official to include on my financial statements any loans that I've had above $5,000. And that has been on those records for quite some time.
Linda,
and Loveship is not on trial here. The Attorney General, the Auditor General, and even the charitable board of organizations has never called Loveship's integrity into questions. And so at that point, I am not here to defend Loveship. It's a separate entity. I'm here for you to ask me questions on my service to this city as a city councilwoman. And at that point, that's all I will address about Loveship. If you have any further questions, you can contact our board of chair because we've been quite frank and open with the Patriot News.
And speaking of that, Mayor Reed's 27-year term, he says on his website made a lot of changes. Are you planning to build on that or knock it down, start fresh? I know yesterday you were talking about we need a new superintendent, we need a new police chief, we need a new vision basically for the city. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, my platform has been, listen, let's just say this. I am one to say that I have stood side by side with Mayor Reed and have been very successful in building downtown. I have chaired the Community's Economic Development Committee for 4 years, and out of that came great success. I understand the business of Harrisburg is about business. Creating jobs, creating opportunities for home ownership, creating opportunities for housing development and business development. And the mayor and I have worked together and understanding the need to do that in downtown and even in midtown. And we have a success record, and it is public, and no one can challenge that. And I have said all along that there is huge devastation in our communities where you see high concentrations of poverty, human decay, infrastructure decay, high unemployment, drug infestation, abandoned properties, vacant properties, and this is precisely where I want to focus my priorities if the people of Harrisburg so choose me as their next mayor. We have to understand that we will no longer tolerate the favorite few, cronyism, and we must move beyond the corridors of downtown and midtown. And the mayor has provided us great service in that area, and I commend him. But I've also been one that have disagreed with him on some really critical issues. And so yes, there will be some things that we will carry on and build on, and there will be some new things that we will build. And that would be those inner city neighborhoods, creating diversity in our economies, neighborhood-based communities where people can get a chance to go into job training centers there. At the same time to be able to start their own businesses through vocational and educational training, and at the same time be able to become property owners there and be a part of mainstream Harrisburg and growing and prospering, benefiting, and also helping the city grow. So absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up, that question.
Do you think there needs to be new leadership in the management roles, such as the school
Absolutely.
Superintendent?
I have not wavered on this. Now my opponent has flip-flopped back and forth as to whether or not we want to get rid of the superintendent. I have been very consistent. Let me say this. I've always said education is non-negotiable, and it is the greatest equalizer. And that I think it's high time that everybody in this community gets outraged about our system.
That's right.
Because Pennsylvania itself is the 6th largest economy in the nation. And Harrisburg is the capital of that state, is the 6th largest economy. And every single one of us, whether it's the media, whether it's businessmen, whether it's the churches, whether it's just public officials, need to be outraged. From Senator Casey to Specter, to Tim Holden, to Ron Buxton, to Senator Ricola, we all need to band together and say we are not going to tolerate it anymore. That our kids deserve to have quality education because it's the greatest equalizer. It allows them to get out here and to compete like all the other schools in the region who are getting quality education, so that we don't have havoc running loosely and lawless and senseless crimes by kids who never had a chance to get a quality education. And so we need to get behind this statement. Dr. Cohn, it's time for you to go. Because we need to go out and do a national search to find a superintendent who has proven and tried experience at running urban schools, and to be able to revise that whole educational system so that everyone wears the mantle that failure is not an option. and be able to put together a citywide initiative, which I called for, to do parental accountability and responsibility. Because parents, let's just face it, they're not the parents that you and I had 10 years ago or 20 years ago. They are kids raising kids. And we've got to find innovative ways through partnering with PTA associations, businesses, to create a citywide mentorship program with our kids, to get them activated and excited about going into careers that really are meaningful, so they can become productive workforce here in Harrisburg, so that if they're not going to college, we already have them prepared for the workforce when they get out of school. And making sure that every single person wants to make sure that we use every opportunity to use our offices and the mayor's office as a bully pulpit to call for public education reform and send a zero tolerance to everyone in that system, from the students to the teachers to the parents, that we want the kids to have a quality education.
And speaking of education, one more thing, the structuring of the whole school district is different from any other place as far as everything goes through the mayor now, Reed, and or Cone, and basically the city runs the school district. Are you looking at restructuring that?
Let me say this, that is a state mandate. I will have jurisdiction over the school district if the people of Harrisburg so choose me as their mayor for 6 months. I was asked by an elected official, who I will remain anonymous, that if I needed an additional time to do what I need to do, that they would be willing to discuss it. 6 months may not be enough time for me to get in there and do some good damage. And in terms of giving the assembled team that will go out and do a search for the best and the brightest superintendent. And it may need some more time for the mayor to be able to use the office as a bully pulpit to really push the public education reform. 6 months, I don't know, but I will have a town hall meeting and gather in every single stakeholder and get them to help make that decision whether we need to have the school district longer than need be. I don't want that school district. I've always advocated that we need to give it back into the hands of responsible parents and taxpayers, but with caution I say give it back. That we will no longer accept those individuals who run for elected school boards to be incompetent, but they would be competent, and they would have the expertise to be able to evaluate the school system in order to call for quality education for our kids, and that they will not sit there and prop up themselves to benefit from favoritism and backdoor contracts and not have education first. So that's why I say I move cautiously to make sure that the citizens get out and no longer pick people because they like them or they live in their neighborhood or that they're their cousins, aunts, and uncles. Because that's why I say we all need to say education is non-negotiable. Yep. And it's the greatest equalizer.
Linda, on the Board of Control, will you remove the members?
I will, there are probably 1 or 2 that I would keep around, but the rest of them I would ask to leave.
And so there are 7 members?
And work with the current elected school board to make sure that we are working together as a community to make the final decision on who the next superintendent will be. So that process will be very transparent and be very involving of the entire community.
And secondly, yesterday the Patriot News came out with their editorial board. I'm confused by it. Do you consider that an endorsement?
Listen, I got a text yesterday morning congratulating me on the endorsement. You know, I was shocked, and so I got another comment from someone else who, you know, said the same thing, congratulations, and I was shocked, and so I made an announcement based on what others had told me, and when I went back to get the paper and read it, I had to read it several times to really figure out what they were saying, because as I always say, the Patriot News has barrels and barrels of ink. You know, they could have really just said, we're not endorsing Linda Thompson. And to really hide it in the middle of the story in a roundabout way was very confusing. And quite frankly, I wasn't the only one that read the story.
I'm totally confused by it.
That they were confused. But again, you know, the Patriot News made their decision. And as confusing as it was, I have always said from day one that I'm a people's elected official. I will be a people's mayor, and the most important endorsements that I could ever get is the people. And I made sure that was a reality in the primary when I got well over 50% of the votes, 50% of the votes for the city of Harrisburg, and I honor that. And that's who I am. I'm here today to defend and to continue to push forward and determined to have a victory on November 3rd. So thank you. Thank you. Any other? Yes, Dan.
To the clergy, This is an endorsement that you are making,
Independently.
not on
Independent.
behalf of any of your.
No organization. They're
Right.
all here operating independently.
I was-
They didn't mention any churches, names have not been mentioned, but by no means are they coming on behalf of their congregation members or their churches. They're coming here independently.
Absolutely.
I don't know if any of the clergy would like to comment on, I guess, how your, parishioners see the election, or is there a lot of discussion, or any of you wish to make a comment along those lines?
Well, my congregation is very much involved with the election process, as we have started several years ago in voter education. They understand that it's their right. They understand that this is an important turnkey for their city, and that it's important for them to exercise their rights. That people who have died, shed blood, to be able to take part of November 3rd. They also know that this is a time in the city where change can happen. And they know that it's not going to happen just with Linda Thompson, being in office. It's about them executing their rights and speaking up. So that's a portion of what, I can say.
I know you're all here independently, but how many different organizations are you here from?
They're not organizations, they're churches.
I meant churches and
Yeah,
organizations.
yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that.
I know the church. Yeah, I mean, I'm just, are you all pastors and clergymen and women? That's a mixture from Exodus.
It's a mixture.
Yes,
All right,
a
thank you.
wide spectrum, a wide cross-section of representation from the faith community.
But I guess my question would be, in light of the recent stories questioning the operation of Loveship and some other things, did you feel it necessary to call these
Oh,
folks
absolutely
together
not.
to
This
do
is,
this?
this particular group has only grown. They came out with the endorsement in the primary, so they've just been consistent. I don't need to have a press conference with ministers to validate my service in the city. My track record speaks for itself. I am honored to have them here because they are certainly a great compliment, and they can attest to the service I provided to the congregation in which they are presided over. So it just adds better support when it comes to discrediting the naysayers. That I have a cross-section of people who are very actively engaged in this election. So yes.
And in other terms, I can speak for myself. I wanted to be here. I wanted to make a stance. I believe that Dr. Martin Luther King was a great example of being a pastor or a clergy, but standing up for the rights of others and being engaged and being socially responsible as clergy. And personally, that's the way I feel, that we should be engaged, not just behind the walls of the church, but in the community as well.
Is this an endorsement of the Black Ministerial organization, or is
Well,
that?
there's a Caucasian minister.
No.
Reverend Tilly, you want to come out here in front so he can see you more visibly?
Linda, Nevin said yesterday, he questions if you're able to manage the city, after what's been in the news. What's your reaction?
I first of all, I thank Mr. Nevin for being in this race because he's made it fun for me. He really has made it fun for me. And my response to Mr. Nevin Midland is, what nonprofit have you founded? What nonprofit have you run? And what award did anyone give you to give you the measuring stick to use to judge me? And matter of fact, the last I checked, that he's always worked for somebody. And he may have, he suggested he started one organization that is not community-wide. I have a litany of proof to show the lives that I have impacted at Loveship and even City Council. So I asked Mr. Niven to get off the nonsense of Loveship and begin to judge me on my record of City Council, because he has already done his investigation with my track record on City Council. He's called down and asked for every single voting record of mine since I've been on council. And he combed those documents with a microscope. And he himself have never publicly came out and denounced my public service on City Council, because my record on council is impeccable. It's impeccable. And so that's why he's playing these cheap ways to try and win this election. And quite frankly, the voters will speak loudly on November 3rd.
Without question.
I just want to make sure I know how many people, are here as clergy endorsing. I mean, can I see a show of hands. I just want to make sure I have an accurate count.
So 1, 2,
Count
3,
what?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25,
25.
25, 26.
26. All right.
Is that it, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you all for coming. You've been really great in reporting. Thank you to those who have stuck to the issues, because that's, at the end of the day, just want to say that I got, the last couple of mornings I've been getting up, going to private breakfasts with businessmen in this city, and I want to commend the businessmen that I have been presented before, because in none of these meetings have they ever stooped to the cheap way of politics and posed questions to me about Loveship or my personal life. These men have been committed and dedicated to growing the city. They wanted to let me know that they were supporting me. One of them made the statement today that they were impressed with how I have a thorough understanding and grasp the issues of this city, and that they've never met me before, and they were pretty impressed, and that they really want to get behind me and move this election forward to a victory, and are looking forward to me becoming the next mayor, and want to do all they can do to help solve the incinerator crisis. I asked them to be willing to pay more property taxes. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's that is a joke. That is a joke. That was part of the joke in the private meeting, and that I'm honored to know that there are men and women in this community who care less about a nonprofit organization that I'm running, but just want to basically make sure that the next leader of this city takes us out of the financial woes that we have now and put us on a solvency type of status in the next 4 years, and bring down crime and create job opportunities for those who have been left out of the mainstream prosperity of Harrisburg. So thank you all for coming.